Gentlemen, I have returned. It's been a while, I know, and some of you may be wondering why I've been gone. But, just like your dad, I don't have a good reason. So I finished a new Halo Edge of Dawn book, and it got my noggin cooking. Not the book itself, but the issues Halo is having from a storytelling perspective, and potentially where I think they could go with it from here. Now, I don't know anything about writing or storytelling, so let's just get that straight right away. But this is just what I've observed as someone who played Combat Evolved before I could read. So some of you may disagree with what I'm about to pull out of my ass, and have clear examples of how I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. First things first, this is not entirely 343 Industries' fault. Now the key word there is entirely, because do not get me wrong, 343 has blown it every single chance they've had. I mean, we're going to talk about that later. I've seen the Bungie versus 343 video. I mean, it's bad. But the reason the Halo lore has been in a slump since after Halo 3 is not entirely because of 343, but mainly because Halo was designed as a trilogy, which I know is obvious, but allow me to elaborate. Again, I'm making this all up. Halo Combat Evolved was designed as a game first. First it was an RTS, then a shooter, and then a new style console shooter. The story was made to fit the game. I'm sure they had notes or general ideas, but how that story would be implemented, the level of complexity, how the player interacts with and shapes the story, none of that could really be set in stone until the core gameplay was locked in. Which was probably most of the development cycle, which is a good thing. Bungie had their priorities straight. They made sure the game was fun first, and then they worked on slapping on a story. Let's look at the story from Halo Combat Evolved from an abstract gameplay first perspective. They wanted unique looking enemies, so they decided on a mixed alien faction and space zombies. They wanted a unique setting and a map that fit the whole sci-fi vibe, so they created a ring world. They wanted an interesting reason for why the humans and these aliens are fighting, so they decided on the best type of war, a holy war. In my eyes, these are the three pillars that form the foundation of all Halo lore. Everything else in the lore, be it in Combat Evolved, future Halo games, or the books, it's derived from these three pillars. Like with Halo Combat Evolved. Let's go over that. The Autumn and its crew make a blind jump and encounter the ring for the first time. They're getting rocked by the Covenant, they wake Chief. Chief is handed Cortana, who from a gameplay perspective I imagine was initially just, made as a guide for the player. You're told to keep Cortana safe, otherwise the aliens will find Earth. Now go get lost on the ring. They abandon ship, mess about on said ring for a bit, rescue the captain, and find out that Halo is some kind of religious weapon. Find the map room, and then head for the control room, accidentally release the flood, talk to a light bulb, learn the rings will kill us all, dome keys, blow the ring, roll credits. Halo Combat Evolved launches, it's very successful, a big hit, which means we're getting a sequel, baby, time to start preparing for Halo 2. And this is where the chefs at Bungie really started cooking, and boy, they was cooking with gas. Looking at the three pillars for Halo Combat Evolved, they wanted to see how they could expand so that the narrative would stay fresh. They wanted unique enemies, so they added more factions to the Covenant, like the drones, the brutes, the prophets, and they also added the Super Flood with the Gravemind. They wanted a unique setting and map that fit the vibe, so they created the Ark. But we can't fit that in this game because Halo 2 had some development hell, so we're gonna have to settle for another Halo ring. So the war, how do we expand on that? How do we make that more fun? What is more fun than a holy war? A holy civil war. Now with these pillars redefined, this is where the boys got together for a sesh and they just started stewing together magic. I mean, just look at all the development Halo 2 gave the Covenant. I mean, this is their story. Chief and the UNSC, they didn't really change much. I mean, we went to Earth for 2 missions, but that was about it. But the Covenant, I mean, just look what they got. It gave them High Charity, the Prophets, the Counselors, the Arbiter, the Brutes. We got a look inside their politics. It expanded on the idea of this 3,000-year-old theocracy. And what does Bungie do with this development? It immediately starts burning them all down one by one. Not in a bad way though. It uses them as fuel for the fire to push the immediate narrative forward. It starts with Chief killing one of the Prophets, which causes a civil war to break out in the Covenant. With that little firecracker poppin', the Flood shows up and eats all of High Charity practically overnight. They stop the ring from firing, discover there are other rings about to fire, discover the Ark, and that Truth is taking a Forerunner ship and beelining it straight for Earth. This all happens over the course of 3 levels or 6 hours in the lore. This is nothing but gas the entire game, and it's why, in my opinion, Halo 2 has by far the best story of any Halo game. It's not even close. It spanks the shit out of almost every other sci-fi story, game or no game. This shit is just so good. Unfortunately, Bungie had to cut it short there, because Halo 2 went through development hell, like I said, so they couldn't fit in as much as they wanted to. A lot of this would spill over into Halo 3. And if you actually look at the narrative for Halo 3, not a whole lot has changed from Halo 2, it's just tying up loose ends. Truth makes it to Earth, they dig up the portal to the Ark, Chief and Arby go to the Ark, kill Truth ending the Covenant, fire the Halo ring killing the Flood, roll credits. Bada bing, bada boom, you got the best trilogy gaming has ever seen. But where does this actually leave the lore? What kind of sandbox is there to tell a story in now? Let's look. The UNSC is the local superpower. The Covenant is gone and replaced with fractured warlords. The Flood has been stopped, and humanity now has access to Forerunner tech. There were some storylines to follow with in the immediate aftermath, and we see this in the Kilo 5 trilogy of books, but ever since the ending, Halo lore hasn't really known how to go forward. For Halo 4, their pillars, they're kind of a little different. They wanted to add Forerunner enemies, so that was their uniqueness. Their unique setting was going to be a shield world, and the story they wanted to follow would not be a holy war, but instead Chief's personal story. While far from the worst narrative to go with, it didn't really stick, which is unfortunate because in Halo 5 they would then go immediately to the worst narrative. AI rebellion is one of my least favorite tropes in sci-fi. It's hard to do right, and this one with Cortana was not done right. Let's look at the pillars in Halo 5. Let's see if they exist or if they've been altered. Let's see what they did. They want to stick with the Forerunner stuff, so and we get the Warden Eternal, I guess, and the Guardians. Never actually fight a Guardian, though. Unique setting and location. I guess we go to Sync Helios for like 3 levels, and then a shield world. That's about it. And you know what? This could all be salvaged. We just need a good, interesting reason to be fighting. You can build off of that. What's the reason? And it's an AI rebellion. And that is why Halo 5 was pretty much dead on arrival, and is considered one of the lowest points in Halo history. And that's without getting into like the marketing or how stupid the whole Chief versus Lox thing was, because it doesn't even matter. It sucked anyways. The only fresh post-war story to come out of a Halo game is the one we got in Halo Wars 2. The idea of Atriox and his Banished, this brute turned pirate warlord who was a menace even to the Covenant. Now that the Covenant is gone, he's taking his crew and they're going on tour. Nothing fancy, nothing too lore-altering, nothing perfect, but it did fit the 3 pillars. They wanted unique enemies, so they created the Banished, which is like this red pirate faction. They wanted a unique setting, so they decided to go with the Ark, and we haven't been to the Ark too much, so people actually, I want to go back there at least. And why are we fighting? So that this pirate bitch doesn't get a Halo ring and can't hold the galaxy hostage. It's a serviceable story and background lore that fit the RTS gameplay of Halo Wars 2. And it was good, well received, people like the characters, they like Cutter, they like Atriox, everybody likes Jerome. The Banished actually seemed like a halfway interesting faction outside of the Covenant, not quite as powerful, but dangerous in their own way, interesting to see more of. So they finally got this little windfall, this small breath of fresh air, a new faction to center their new mainline game around. And as you all know, Halo Infinite completely drops the ball. The most egregious offense is probably Atriox. By far the best aspect of the Banished. His charisma, his intelligence, he's one of the few characters in the lore that I actually want to see more of. And we don't see him for pretty much the entire game. Instead, they just keep leading us by the nose to fight this endless alien creature that they just came up with, and figure out what happened to Cortana. On paper this sounds fine. As I said in the beginning of this video, I just read the new book. I kind of like the Zalatan, I'm not all the way sold on them, but I'm open to them. But who gives a shit about some weird, obscure time alien creature that only book nerds will truly appreciate? I want to get in there and rock someone's shit, boy. Halo Infinite should have had us building up to whoop Atriox's ass. Instead, it has us building up to fight the Harbinger, but who's the Harbinger? What is she doing? Why is this bad? Why do we need to stop her? It doesn't answer any of this. They finally got a spark, and they just let it die. I don't know how they're going to get it back. Maybe they got some grand plan for Atriox and the Banished in Halo 7. I guess we'll see. The Halo universe is running out of steam from a narrative standpoint. The Covenant is gone. The UNSC is chillin', Spartans are mass-produced. They tried to stir it up with an AI rebellion, but since literally nobody liked it, 343 thankfully abandoned that ship. What is there to do now? Even if we see the Banished in the next game and defeat Atriox, what then? Is there just another enemy faction that's going to emerge? Even if it did emerge, would it be able to rival the Covenant's threat? The Covenant was a 3,000-year-old theocracy with thousands of worlds in its empire, and they waged a war of genocide against humanity for nearly 30 years, wiping out like half of their population and blowing all of their colonies to hell. Now, the Covenant is gone. How do you have a force like that appear again in the story without it just feeling contrived? Even if you have that force, who would they fight? Humanity already lost most of its colonies. They lost half their population, so I mean, I guess if you want to push that to losing 90% of their population, who is the next big baddie? And even if they were here, what is the UNSC going to fight them with? This is why I say it's not entirely 343's fault. Their job is to create an epic narrative with the tools they have in the lore. But the best tools were already burned down by Bungie in the OG trilogy. So they gotta make more tools. Gotta make something new to feed the narrative fire. But that new thing has to meet the epicness of the Covenant, but fit the diminished state that humanity is now in. I'm sure there are people who can write a top tier epic out of this, but that is for better people than me. This high-octane narrative storytelling logistically can only work in a few settings, such as Star Wars or 40k, settings where the scale of population, industry, infrastructure, and even history and navigation throughout the galaxy, it is one that is conducive to very long, multiple theater-spanning wars. And it's inside those wars that the real storytelling happens. Without that war, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. You're just a bunch of jackasses discussing politics in the 26th century. And our politics in the real world is currently more interesting than any fictional politics. This is why 40k's whole shtick is there's only war. Because if there wasn't war, we wouldn't have anything except the Emperor glazing himself. Or like Helldivers, if we beat the bots, the bugs, and the Illuminids, well, if we do that, then there's no more democracy to spread. If there's no more democracy to spread, what is there to do? I don't want to live. It's the same reason that Star Wars sucks ass now. It's in the name. Star Wars. Disney seems to be allergic to war. And surprise, surprise, Star Wars is in a rough state. I mean, who wants to follow a franchise called Star Wars that has no war? They did good with The Mandalorian Season 1, and you can have a good side story, though I am sick of Grogu. They need to get rid of him after Season 2. And Andor was great because it leads into Rogue One, which is The New Hope and the Rebellion and all that. But Halo is not like Star Wars or 40k. Halo is a different style of sci-fi. It's a more grounded one, set 500 years in the future where humanity's colonies are measured in the hundreds and we still live within around a 100 light-year bubble of Earth. And so with the events of the Human Covenant War, like I said, half the population got wiped out, most of the colonies are gone, humanity had a rough one. You know, it's like in the real world when a major war happens, like a world war. Usually the countries, they need years to recover, and they need decades. You can't just fight one total war and then go, you know, right into another total war. I mean, we kind of did with World War I and II. That's besides the point. For the UNSC to be in a position to fight a major alien total war threat again, it's going to be decades. They would have to jump the narrative forward decades, which actually kind of creates issues of its own when you go into it. First, most of the human characters we know now would be dead, though that might be for the best. Chief might be able to live since he's a Spartan, might live longer. One major thing though would actually be the technology. Halo hits a really sweet spot of like where the military technology is, how it's both sci-fi but also modern at the same time. I love it so much. Well, if they send the lore forward by decades, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, the technology obviously advanced. Now you just have standard sci-fi technology like, you know, the Forerunners. That's not as interesting as what the UNSC had, hence why there are other issues, but whatever. For franchises like 40k or Star Wars, it's a little bit different. Because of the scale of their population and industry and how they spread throughout the galaxy, it's justifiable with a million worlds why there is always another fleet, another army, another world. It's why the story can keep moving forward without requiring a time skip when it doesn't want to do one. And even when it does want to do one, because again of the time scales, like 40k, you know, 40,000 years. I think Star Wars is like 25,000, might be 20, can't remember. But like, you know, if you skip ahead 50 years, on a time scale of 20,000 years, that's not really that big of a skip. For Halo, the UNSC doing a 50-year time skip is kind of a big deal when humanity's only been interstellar for like the last 150 years. So all this leads me to is where I think they can go from here. Option 1. Try to play out the Banished and pray to Christ you don't fuck it up and hope that you have some epiphany along the way on where to take the story after. Option 2, go with the reboot path. But if you want to have prospects of going past the original trilogy, I think either High Charity or the Prophets have to survive. One or the other. Option 3, wildcard. Time skip 100 years into the future or something where Chief is an ancient Spartan and we're all back in the trenches. I'm not sure which of these options is the best, or that these are the only options. There are a lot of them. I just think that Halo has been sort of written into a corner. And this isn't anybody's fault, this is just a consequence of the trilogy naturally concluding. You know, all good stories come to an end, look at Lord of the Rings. I say this because when writing a story, you can set the beginning wherever you want. Bungie set the story right at the top of the Halo roller coaster, and we all know and love it. We rode that roller coaster all the way down, Bungie got off, and 343 got on, and now they have the job, they gotta ride us back to the top of the hill, so that we can fall back down again and have fun. Because although you can start a story wherever you want, 343 can't just write themselves back at the top of the coaster. They have to build their way back up slowly, which takes time, story development, competency. I'm not saying it's impossible, it can be done. But I imagine it's a hard challenge for any writer, and like I said, the lore is currently in a low valley and they have to work within the lore to make the stories. 343 has not helped their case. The fact that it's been 15 years since they took over and we've only got one semi-fresh story thread is not promising. Either way, that basically wraps up my thoughts. I wanted to explain why I think the Halo lore is in a rut, and I see a lot of people talking about it and accrediting it to 343, which is true, but I don't see enough people pointing out how, in a manner of speaking, 343 kind of has their hands tied because the fight has already been finished. If you guys agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments. This is a fun topic. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate a like. If you disliked it, let me know by pushing the button. If you want to hear more from me, you can subscribe. Until next time, fellas.